Do we still need it? No. No. What? Should I take photos for?
Okay, call to order. So today is February 10th, 2026. It is 5:02 p.m. and we are going to be kicking off this work session. And just a reminder that no decisions are made at this work session. This is for us to be updated on projects and ask questions and figure things out. With that, I will do the roll call. Ward 1, Counselor Nassif.
Present.
All right. Counselor Wolf?
Here.
Counselor Shada?
Here.
And Counselor Pro Tem Chandler?
Present.
All right, and I'm here as well. And Carrie Storm and Gloria Latimer are excused. And with that, we are going to jump into our first agenda item, and that's the emergency siren expansion and wildfire mitigation assessment proposal. And it looks like we are all ready to go. Excellent. Fire Chief, take it away.
Thank you. Good evening. We have a second alarm here. One of the proposals we're looking at here is we're talking about the sirens first. From the wildland world, I want to think about it in 4 different phases. First part is preparedness. The second part is mitigation. Third will be response, and fourth will be recovery. So the first part of this equation, when we're looking at the sirens, we want to make sure we have good alerting and equal alerting, and have the alerting so that we can really blanket the city instead of having the primary sirens for the downtown area, which were set up for floods, which was where the water was going to be going anyway. Wildfire doesn't think by the same rules, and so we want to kind of have a better blanketing and move it more up into the foothills, more into the residential areas off of Manitou Avenue. And that's why we brought this before you today. If there's any questions you would have about that, I think we have enough people here to be able to formulate a good response.
This is part of that $692,000 that you have allocated for fire mitigation. The first part is to look at the alarms. And with that, I also want to mention, we're getting ready to put in a DOLA grant by Thursday to submit to pay for half of those alarms. And we would know in April if we receive that or not. It would be a tier 1 DOLA grant. So it doesn't go to it's not the higher level DOLA grant. The other portion is to get a consultant to come on, and they'll talk a little bit about that and what that would look like and what we would want from that. So I'll turn that back over to Chief, but this is with the $690,000 that you allocated. That's the number one thing that they're believing that we need to do is really have those alarm systems. It's really because at 2:00 in the morning, if an alarm goes off, or if there's a fire and you don't have your phone on or it's right next or you don't hear it and you are not signed up for Peak Alert, to try to have somebody at Crystal Hills know that the fire and you need to start looking at evacuation. If we don't have something like this, we're going to have to start going door to door. So with that, I'll turn it back about the next steps also, but this is part of the 692.
Can I ask for a point of clarification though? So what I hear you saying is that of the approximate $250,000 that the siren would cost, DOLA grant may come through to pay for approximately half of that. However, the no, Keith is, okay. I just want a point of clarification. If you could clarify that, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, that's an accurate statement in that we will only be funding the sirens. The consultant will be a conversation that we can have later when we start to rally our contacts together to find out how we're going to move forward toward that.
Thank you.
Denise, do you know when the DOLA grants would be determined so we know if we qualified?
Yeah, by April. I spoke with Todd this week. He said by 1st of April or so, we would know whether we received half of that or not. And that would give them time to get everything in place, make sure that we know exactly what we needed, the poles, et cetera, get the locations identified. And so we're ready to go and get it installed as in April.
And it was probably in the packet, but I don't recall. What is the price of the siren? Has that been priced
The
out?
estimated price right now is $250,000 for 4 of them. Am I talking? Yeah, for 4 sirens.
Okay. Thank you. And DOLA has agreed if we qualify that they would do a 50-50 cost share?
That's what we will request. I can't guarantee that that's what they'll give, but they'll go through, we'll request 50. They may say, hey, how about 30%, right? Depending on all the requests that they have, but we're going to request 50%.
Thank you.
And again, just a point, so we currently have 3 sirens, and then we would be adding 4.
Yes, we currently have 3 sirens. We have 1 on Osage. We have 1 here at City Hall. We have 1 behind the Briarhurst.
Okay,
DOLA actually helped us with those sirens when we first originally got those, except for the City Hall siren, other than to upgrade those due to the flood date risk after Waldo Canyon.
okay, excellent, thank you.
Good question. Do we test those?
We
I hear-
test those.
Both?
Yeah, so they're getting tested every day. Once a month, you get the full verbal testing. Every day, John and I, Forsett and I get a silent test in our emails that tells us, hey, sirens are working, everything's great, it's all good to go. So they're being tested every day. You just don't know about it.
And is there a way to clarify the verbal notice? It's very, it's really hard to tell what they're saying. At least for
There-
my house.
Well, yeah. Those are all, I can certainly ask that question. Those are all I want to say pre-recorded, but they're not recorded. It's all going about computer voice, but we do have a way to get on a PA system to where we could talk to all of them also. So if we needed to, we could certainly get on and say what we need to say,
Oh, that's good.
but
to
that
know.
has to be manual. We have to be here at the station to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is doable, but if there's a way to get an updated recording, have you heard it?
I hear it all.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and with the echo, it's really hard too with the echo. So we're hoping that adding, because the potential places that we're looking at adding to is Higginbotham Flats. That will get that into town, the Bar Trail parking lot, which will get Ruxton Canyon and in that area of town, Deer Valley Park, which would get Crystal Hills, and then the Fields Park, which would get that other end of Becker's Lane in that area.
And will the new sirens be sirens only, or will it also be the talking?
It will also have the same capabilities of these sirens,
The
so,
talking, you know that maybe something's wrong because it's loud.
right,
That's about all you know.
right.
I mean,
Right, and there's definitely a training piece with that. It's just like peak alerts and everything else. I know that there's some concerns that people won't leave when the sirens go off because they hear it and they go, well, I don't know what that is. So they just start calling people going, what was that noise? What was this? What was that? I think that's just a training piece that we need to tighten that loop a little bit and train the public that when you hear this, it does mean that there's something going on.
so, but you think you might be able to get a new record?
I'll ask the question for sure. I'll see if they can get it clear. The problem also is the echo. So I can't do anything about the echo as far as it bouncing off of the mountains and stuff like
Yeah,
that. But
an echo problem. You just can't make out the word.
I'll ask that question.
you.
Yep.
So just to be clear, this isn't a question, but just for the audience and in the community who might be listening in, we have 3 sirens, but we want to add an additional 4 to make sure that citywide, gateway to gateway, people will be able to hear the siren clearly. So that is, I just want to, that's what we're spending our money on, is that we have sirens, but we need more because I'm on Becker's Lane and I can hear the siren go off, but I can't, barely. So I just want to make sure that that is the intent of the 4 additional sirens, is to make sure that we have citywide coverage.
That is,
Or
yes,
how-
that is the intent for sure. With the voice piece, I can't guarantee necessarily that everybody's going to understand exactly what it says, but I will certainly do my due diligence to find out what we can do about that. If there is different recordings out there, that we can have. So yes, that is our intent, is so that the entire city gets alerts instead of just the downtown corridor and the Manitou Avenue corridor.
Thanks so much, all. What's the lifespan of the siren? Do you have to decommission them after a certain amount, and is there ongoing?
So these
Maintenance.
current silencers we've had, there's ongoing maintenance and John Forsett and I do those. And we've done those for the life of the sirens that are here currently. These sirens came in after Waldo Canyon. We just had them all inspected last year. And they're perfect. As far as the maintenance goes, there was nothing that they needed to do. John and I keep up on it pretty well as far as what we need to do with the solar and everything on those. And we get them repaired as fast as they are broken, because we understand how emergent or what urgency those are for us anyway. John and I, with the flood mitigation right now.
And just in terms of average lifespan of a siren, is it 20 years, 25, 30?
I will ask
15.
that question. The one at City Hall's been there longer, and it's been there almost, the siren itself has been there almost as long as I've been here, which is 40 years, as far as working for the city. But I think it's probably around 30 years, and it works just fine, and it's getting a clean bill of health. So, but I'll ask the manufacturer if they actually have a date, and I can get that back to you with that.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I just mention the alarms, whenever they did do the inspection, due to the due diligence that Randy and John Forsett do, they say they were in excellent shape. They haven't seen alarms that at that age in that good of shape, and it's really due to their dedicated service and making sure that the maintenance is always done.
Any other questions regarding the siren piece? Okay. And then in terms of feedback or conversation today around that additional piece of doing some kind of an assessment, is this just kind of an FYI? Is there any?
So that is, we're asking also, do you support that? We don't know exactly what that cost will be. We're looking at some other grants that might be available for it. But what we'd like to do is have somebody come in from the outside. And Chief, if you want to explain this, I'll turn it over to you instead of me talking, if you would like to take it.
What we're looking for is to find a best case scenario and a best practices scenario. So we're looking at a consultant who's got a lot more exposure to a lot more opportunities and regions than we do. Fire is going to behave a lot the same, but they might have some insights of what has happened and some failure points that have happened someplace in other places. So we want to capture that and not repeat a mistake. So if we can find a person that's their job, that's their discipline, that's their lane of traffic that they stay in, we can alleviate a lot of the exits that will take us in bad places. So we could put the brain power together, but it's going to take a real dedicated person to be able to learn this. And we're going to have to be traveling to other markets to find out how they have succeeded and completed their abatements and their mitigations and their responses and their recoveries. So that's the benefit we get from that. We're guesstimating probably 30 to 80,000 because we don't know what degree of expertise we'll get and what they bring to us and how they can bid for their abilities to have us pick them.
Oh, go ahead, Julie.
Yeah, I was going to say the other thing that we'll ask them to do is really identify first, second, third, fourth priorities. So we have somebody with that expertise that is looking at it from a holistic perspective of saying, it may be, again, the reservoir is one that we think might be, but we want them to identify, here's your number one priority and here's what you need to do and here's what the approximate cost is. So then every year we can come to you saying, here are the projects that we need to get done and here's the cost that it's going to be. Right now, we don't really have that. So it will give us a roadmap for the next 5 years of what needs to happen with that expertise.
So will this go out for an RFP?
Yeah, we'll have to do that. We have to nationwide publish that so we can find out who is the best consultant. I can get an agent here that can be able to inject themselves into our arena and find out what is best.
And do you know generally how long it takes for these companies to do their assessments for municipalities? Is it like a year-long thing or?
I think that that will be kind of dependent on the complexities that they find here in Manitou Springs, because we're not going to be just a grassland. We're not going to be just a wildland interface. We're going to be structures, schools, water. We have our own water, our own watershed and reservoirs. So the complexity might make it a little more difficult to just rubber stamp it and say, these are the tactics and these are the things that we need to have. So I would guesstimate 6 months-ish would be a good time frame that would be able to sound back and forth and find out what it is that they can offer and then move forward as objectively as possible.
And do you happen to know how other cities in Colorado, such as Eagle County, have addressed the dead wood in the forest? I mean, what is their methodology to, I mean, just, do they have a couple of trucks driving around with chainsaws? And I mean, what methods do they use for that?
I'm going to turf Benjamin on this one. Benjamin is one of a type 1 incident management team out of Alaska, and he's an operations person. He does lots of stuff in wildland world as his main discipline.
So first off, I'm Ben Englehart. In regards to mitigation and Eagle specific, I'm not up to speed on what you're referencing. But in regards to beetle kill trees, which is where I think you're going, you know, it's a long-term project. It's a lot of manual labor and a lot of mechanical labor. But first, the projects need to be ID'd. Traditionally, you start with infrastructure, ID and infrastructure, and what it takes to support the community. And then from there, along with Denise's suggestion of having several phases, we would ID the phases accordingly, working, you know, with the first priority being infrastructure and so on down. As far as the timeline goes, based off on the consultants' information and input we get or receive from them, that would help define our objectives, if you will, more.
And so since simply eliminating the dead trees and that are easily accessible from our roads, would it make any sense to just start with that, even though we don't have an official plan? Because from my uninformed brain, it seems like that would be kind of a simpler approach that we could hire someone to do.
Take this real quick. Our mitigations efforts that we're currently doing and that we're pushing forward aren't going to stop just because we're getting a consultant. So anything that that we may identify or that you guys identify that you think you want us to start on first, we will still continue with those efforts. We're not just going to stop everything and wait for the consultant to come back. So we'll continue with what we do now and what we have done for quite a while now with the assessments and the chipping days and all of that kind of stuff to assist the general public with the mitigation stuff.
Oh,
for
that's
sure.
great. And then are you currently doing what I suggested with going in with chainsaws and taking wood from the part of the forest that's so close to the homes? Is that part of your ongoing effort?
So according to our codes and what we can do stuff on city property. We do assessments when people request them on private property. We don't have any teeth to go in with a chainsaw and cut somebody's trees
Oh,
back
no, I'm
15
talking
feet.
about, I'm not talking about private
But we
property.
certainly do it on city property, yes.
And that's coupled with Jillian and her crew, with her arborists, when they do look at health of trees. Because the trees that we look at, one of the things that I want you to hear, if I may present it as effectively as possible, is a tree that's healthy is pretty resilient to lightning strike. A tree that's beetle kill or drought stressed is very prone for ignition after a lightning strike. Jillian and her group is doing great work on finding health of trees, so we don't have a tree that's old and rotted out from the inside that can conduct the heat and create an ignition point. So Jillian is doing some stuff in mitigation and helping us immensely in her world. But then for us to be able to go do an assessment on a city property, we can do that and we can drop trees, but the city properties, those open properties are kind of falling into Jillian's world, but that doesn't mean that she and I can't have a handshake and kind of take care of each other's threat.
So she's doing mostly prevention.
Yes, she's finding trees that are bad and she's working with take a tree, plant two more, which will be a problem for the chief, like 6 after me. Because those trees will grow up and they'll be old and they'll be stressed and they'll be back in the same cycle. But yes, she is doing a lot of, I think most of the stuff she's doing is more for the risk of that tree falling on a civilian. And just kind of like the library, we pulled out 19 trees or something to that effect because they were rotted from the inside. So she's doing work. Mikey's doing assessments. City property is open for us, and then the citizenry, that's where Mikey has that grant money where we can kind of match homeowners to help them mitigate their property, because that really kind of helps give that green light to kind of move in that direction. I know that when you look over your fences, you see a big wildland problem that we can't address.
How about like all along the creek walk? There's a lot of trees that seem like they'd be pretty easy to access that.
I can take that. We've done, if you walk the creek walk, we've done most of that recently. So, but then there's a part that is owned by the Briarhurst and they need to do that. But our property along the creek walk, if you go there again, they've done a lot of cleaning up there. We did Deer Valley last year. The year before we did the one up by Pilot Knob. So every year we try to take on one area. As you know, we usually have to bring a group in to help us because we don't have the people to do it or the expertise necessarily to do it for a week or 2 weeks. So every year we try to take a certain section. This year, that's one of the things that we may look at is coming back and saying, can we get 25,000 to have somebody else come in to help us take on a certain area? We just don't have that identified right now. And so, but every year we're doing a section at a time is what we've been focused on.
Oh, thank you. And I think the answer is no. Do we have any laws in Manitou, any ordinances that require property owners to get rid of dead trees?
Yes, you do have it through land use, your Larry and his group. They came through. I just know my neighbor called me up a few weeks ago and said, or it might be a year ago, and said he was given a notice that if he didn't drop a tree, he was going to be cited for having a dead standing tree in his property. And I was like, I didn't hear anything about that. So I called down to planning and they're like, yes, that's true. I'm like, whoa, okay. So I dropped the tree for him. But so yes, we do have in codes, not in fire. There's no fire code that allows us to do that, but city codes does.
So would that be code enforcement?
Yeah, and we also do, grass if it's so high, et cetera, et cetera. There's always this competition, not a competition, but of course, there are individuals that want to have higher grass for the environment. The no-cut grass helps the environment also. And then trees, some people want them right next to their house, but we may say no, right? But that's their choice. The chipping days is something that we do to try to get everybody to clean up. And then if there's one area that's really a danger, at certain times we can do a citing. I will tell you, and a citing, what I mean is a notice from Neighborhood Services, but that can take up to 2 years depending on how we go through the process to get them to really clean it up.
Oh, so if we notify them, like if we were to notify the Briarhurst, especially since they have new owners, and let them know that we really want their dead trees to be removed, we would wait 2 years for them to get it done?
Not necessarily, but it depends on how it goes through the process. If they say no, they're going to fight it. We go to court, we go back and forth. Some things can get done fairly quickly, some takes longer. It's
So
just a
how could I
process.
get the Briarhurst to get a notice? What would be the process?
We'd have to go look at it and make sure that it meets what we can do to give a notice. So we'd go look at it and see, and you can go look and see there are some trees down. Some of those trees are also good for the habitat. So, right, we have to identify, is this tree really good for the habitat or does it need to be cleaned up now? So there's some of that you want to do also, but we would go out and do an assessment and say, we'd have fire go out, do an assessment and say, yes, these need to be cleaned up or these are okay.
And when you say we, is that code enforcement? Who's we?
We'd probably have fire go out and do the
Can you
assessment.
guys do that?
We can. We have Mikey that's kind of our expert in that regard. He's the one that's been taking on that discipline. I'll point out two things for you. Jillian, last year, because it's February, we had 3 trees that were a big risk. They were coming into telephone lines, which was going to be a conductivity thing, was going to be creating heat, and was going to become a problem for us. She was able to use Mikey and her partnered up. We got a landscaping company to drop those trees, and they were big trees, and they were across the creek. Also, Mikey last year had contact with a person on the creek, right around the corner by the Mountain Bell building, the Century building, and we had a large tree there that people are looking for help to do that, and that's where Mikey really helps do that process or carry out that process to help mitigate private people's properties. So that's been a real strong tool for us. Assessing a tree, some of those trees are Chinese oak, and they're as big around as the 3 of us. And it's going to take a better organization than Manitou Springs has to drop that. And that's going to be contracting with a landscaping company that does that work. Does that answer your question?
Oh, sorry.
So are you good with going over to the Briarhurst and looking at that? Do you have to get permission in advance to trespass on their property, or how does that work?
I'll look into it. I'll get with John this week and figure out what we can do.
I just thought since they're new owners, they might be a little more open to cleaning things up as opposed to someone who says, it's been there like that for 50 years. Why are you bothering me? You know?
So I have a couple questions kind of based on Julie's remarks. So the first one is, would the assessment include recommendations to council in terms of policies and codes that we could implement, or would it be at a different level of the conversation? And additionally, would it include any sort of community engagement or community input as well? So I'm just wondering if those two things could potentially be looked at in terms of an RFP, or is that something separate from this moment?
We can build a proposal to address any of the concerns that you would have.
Okay.
And I think that's very forward thinking of you to enact a process by which we would look at what we've got and look where we need to go. Especially in terms of ordinances and things to that effect. If we want to enact that, I think that would be an uphill battle, but it's a battle nonetheless, but it's a battle that's worth fighting.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, coming through an assessment is helpful for us as
Right,
opposed to
right.
coming from.
Yeah, I think it will really help get everyone on the same sheet of music, the citizenry, the city governance,
Mhm.
fire response, even Jillian, to be able to see what our priorities are. So when people see us doing work in some particular area, they know why we're doing work in that particular area and know that what's coming next and after that. And I think that would be, there's no downside to that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Any additional?
Do we have a general idea of what it costs to get these assessments done?
Well, Mikey's already done an assessment on pretty much every property in Manitou Springs already. So you want to go?
Julie, are you talking about the consultant?
Yeah, the consultant.
We don't. I've reached out to a third party to try to get an estimate. Unfortunately, the head guy had to go to Saudi Arabia last week, so he couldn't give me a number. I'm still working with him to see if he could give us an estimate, but it all depends on like what we want, time frame, all that stuff will depend on the price of the consult, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, since you guys have done such a great job of assessing every property, I'm wondering whether we can, instead of cherry picking individual people's projects, that we use the data that we have in terms of the red dots and figure out a plan to focus on those areas and see if we can get those mitigated.
So you would like to not move forward with the assessment as presented and consider doing it in-house based
No.
on?
I'm not saying that. I'm
Okay.
saying we already have a risk assessment map that has red dots. Insurance companies look at this. Okay, so this is affecting people by us marking these as red. And my comment is we already have this assessed. I'm not talking about changing any of the other stuff that we're talking
Okay.
about here. But I'm saying we already have an existing layer of red dots. It seems like to me that ought to be our first priority to figure out how we get those properties mitigated in terms of or the surrounding public property, you know, that may be helping to drive that general risk in that area. So I'm just wondering what kind of a plan that we could put in place with that. I don't think we need a Saudi Arabian consultant to come in or whatever to look at this. It seems like to me, we already have a list of properties. We've done all this work that the department's done with it. And it seems like to me, we ought to maybe have a goal of saying, you know, at the end of the year, you know, we have contacted all these owners. We have done some education with them. We've gone back out and verified that the red dot is deserving. And if it isn't, you know, we've changed it to orange or yellow or green or whatever, you know,
So
that kind of thing.
correct me if I'm wrong, but you're asking for what their plan is for this year in terms of mitigation as opposed to this, which is a bigger.
So I think I
ongoing.
understand
Yeah.
what Councilman Shade is saying, and
Yeah.
I understand that 100%. The problem, and we have contacted, everybody knows where to go for the map to look at their properties and what's wrong with their properties and that kind of stuff. And we've done that over and over and over again. Obviously, we can't go on to private property and mitigate those efforts. We can certainly do door knocking
Well,
again or direct people to that website to see what their property is. But if they don't want to do anything about it, we can't do anything about
I
it.
understand
So-
that, but it seems like to me, I guess, from my standpoint, I guess I would almost like to have like every 60-day report in terms of what the status of all these bubbles are, when the last time these people have been contacted, whether we're getting any replies or any movement out of it, and what is our surrounding property, our responsibility, not necessarily this particular property, because when you look at this map, you can pretty much tell that, you know, there's some public property around those things that
Are you looking at the map on our the
Exactly.
assessment map?
exactly.
Okay, that assessment, that was all drive-by assessments by us. Obviously,
Right.
we did every one of those
Right.
properties. We didn't do drive-by assessments of the city properties. We actually did full-blown assessments. So are you asking us to go out every 60 days and door knock and talk to people?
I'm not
Or,
saying-
because
I'm
we're
not
putting it
saying-
out on the website right now
I'm not
to
saying
see
what the
that.
frequency is of contact. I'm saying that council gets a report about, and the community gets a report about, are we moving the needle with any of these properties? Okay. I don't want to have to go back out here every day and try and see whether a red dot has changed. I have no idea whether the map is even in motion, whether it's being, you know, changed and whether we're managing that. To me, it seems like one of the things that you do is you get progress by things that you measure and you work on and have a plan to get it done. And so that's what I'm asking about. This map is something that we've communicated to the community. And if we're not moving the needle on it, I guess I'd like to know and us figure out, you know, a new strategy. If we're not moving the needle on it, well, then I guess what we're doing is not working, right? So that's kind of the definition of an idiot, is just keep doing the same thing that you're not getting movement on over and over again, right? So that's my point, is that we've got this thing here. And some of these areas are green, okay, which is great. You know what I mean? And in those areas, I don't think we ought to be spending any time fooling around, even picking up one stick that has a green dot next to it. The areas that have all these red bubbles and whatnot, insurance companies are looking at this stuff. And this is what's impacting, you know, our rates as a community. Okay. And it seems like to me, we can talk about maybe we need to do some neighborhood engagement meetings with people to try and get maybe some social pressure going. And I think if people also saw us looking at our adjacent parcels. So that's, I guess, my next ask is, there are other adjacent parcels around here. These are all structure related, right? Exactly. And so it seems like to me, we ought to be looking at those red areas and then moving the dot further into, and on many of those cases, those are open space and things we own. And I bet you those are cherry red as well. I'm
Okay.
just guessing.
Yeah, no, that's good. So,
you.
Denise, do you want to mention the upcoming community meeting that you're working on? And then additionally, just to mention that I'm assuming you did not mean that you thought any of these gentlemen were idiots, correct? Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we're putting together a community meeting where we'll have fire, we'll have parking here, we'll have police here, we'll have everybody here. It's a community morning where they can come in and talk to the fire about their property, their assessed property, what they need to do. They can get signed up for all their parking permits and all those, water meter change outs. So I don't have the exact date yet. We're real close to having that date. And it will be from about 9 to 1, and it will be here, and it will just be to come in and talk to any department that you want to talk to and get information in one-on-one time.
And then I do like the idea of having some kind of a map that we can see our progress so we can celebrate our successes as we move forward. And I don't know what that looks like and whether it would come through this assessment or whatever, but goals are sometimes helpful, especially for neighborhoods, if they can kind of get behind a goal, maybe. So those are just conversations to have too, I think, that I thought that was kind of an interesting request. So go ahead.
To address your comments, Councilman Shada, the map that you're looking at was a map of structures. So some of the things that we can't change about the structures are its aspect and its topography, its degree of slope and the way it faces. Additionally, it's the siding of the house, the composite roof structure, and then if we have defendable space around it where we can get firefighters in and firefighters out. That was the color coding that we used to do the assessment. We looked at the structures, not the trees. The trees were just kind of a sidebar as could we get around the tree to get to the backside of a house. So there's things in that color coding that the homeowners not going to have an opportunity to fix. They're not going to be able to fix their slope, and not going to be able to fix the way the building faces on a hillside. But as we look at the assessment from the vegetation, that's going to be a whole nother discussion. We have the structure components, aspect, slope. That's what's Councilman Shade is talking about.
We don't know as to the city-owned property, the various open spaces. We don't know which, if any of them, would be coded high danger at this time. Only the structures have been identified for
that
just
coding system, yes, ma'am. Yeah, for that coding system, yeah, we don't have a coding system. We haven't gone out and done a coding on our properties. We certainly can. I don't know that we would have a color, but we could certainly come back with recommendations going, Deer Valley Park needs to be done again. It's past its time or whatever that may be, but we can certainly do that. I don't know that we would publish a color code on those open space properties, but we could certainly bring a report back to council going, here's the open spaces, here's our recommendations for that.
And do you have the staff to do that, to go out to the open spaces and look to see how extensive the mitigation would be? Or is that something you'd need to hire out independently?
I'm sure that we could probably do that in-house. I don't know what time frame, but we could get it done in-house.
Thank you.
I did not bookmark that map, but there's that heat map. Okay. Tell me about how we acquired the data for that and what's going on with that, as opposed to the dot map.
That was in the Plan Manitou. We were able to gather data from every year. We have a flyover for our mapping for the El Paso County.
Okay.
And we pull data from that, and we look at the fuels, size of the fuels, and sometimes we can even look at the heat that we can generate. We looked at it from the standpoint of where's that fire going to run?
Right.
But it does give us kind of an overall, this is a bad area. This is a box canyon. This has got a lot of heavy fuels. And we gauge our fuels in 1 hour, 10 hour, and 100 hour.
Okay.
And that means for essentially, I'm not going to talk Haynes, but what that kind of gives us an indicator of is how long that fuel will be at its maximum saturation. And our magic number in Colorado is 20%. So if it's 21%, for an hour, that grass is fully saturated. An hour after it's less than 21%, it's going to be dry and ready to burn. Then we have our sagebrushes, which are our 10-hour fuels, and we have our timbers, which are 100-hour fuels. And so we look at the density of the fuels with geospectrum. We look at how we have the fuels arranged on the side, where that slope is, how it's facing, how steep it is, and know how the fire behavior is going to be act when we put into the model. And so that model kind of generates what you can likely expect. But when we get our fuels into single digits, the stuff will explode in your hand. And those models are no longer applicable. And so we don't want to have a false sense of security saying, oh, this fire is going to be a running fire at X amount of acres per hour or X amount of acres per minute. We're going to have to be dealing with it almost reactively like an atom bomb. So it's not that minute data.
Okay, so I guess what I'm asking is, it seems like we have an existing layer that's like that has fuels and whatnot, that's not structure related, right? In terms of what you were talking about before, in terms of have to do with the slope and the structure and the.
Very true,
defensible-
based on the map that they got whenever they did the flyover for Plan
Right,
Manitou. That
exactly.
could be totally different than what it is today.
Yeah, but it would be difficult for me that it's improved, right?
I think some areas in Manitou have improved in open space just through the mitigation efforts that we
Okay.
have done. But
Okay.
I'm not saying it's 100%.
Okay.
I'm just saying
Well-
that map's not 100% reliable is all
Yeah,
I'm trying to
I
say.
understand that, but if it's 90% reliable, what I'm asking is there a way for us to take that map, translate that back really quickly into a parcel map so that we know what's our responsibility and what some of these other things are, so that we can get an early start on if we already have some science behind this and it's maybe 95%, maybe it's only 85% good. And then maybe ask the question, okay, what does it cost to do another flyover to get, like you say, a 98% confidence map? Okay. So that I'm just asking, it seems like the department has already done an immense amount of work. Okay. And I think the effort, on the part of council to fund this was to now actually get some feet on the ground, some activity going to actually get this mitigation going, not to do it more endless studies and more endless consultants. Okay. More comparisons with other communities. I'm not interested in all that stuff. I could care less what's going on in Eagle County. You can go out and read what's going on in Eagle County. And then if you want to go take a trip up there, and as a council person, I'm totally uneducated as to whether any of that stuff is doing any good. But if we're doing flyovers that show that we have what you were just describing is those dangerous things, and if we are not have a plan to kind of mitigate those, okay, in my opinion, with the existing stuff, I think we are not taking advantage of the data and the information we already have. And all we're doing is just we're going to end up with another study, okay, with another council and another meeting like this 2 years from now, okay, and then the whole thing's going to be, oh, well, that's all out of date now, and now we have to do this again. So I'm trying to figure out how we get marshaled as a community, okay, to use the information we have right now to get us mitigating this stuff and getting movement on the ground and getting reports so that we know whether what we're doing is making progress, okay, or whether we're stuck in certain areas, okay, and why are we stuck, and have the real honest discussion as a community, why we're not moving the ball. So what would that look like from the standpoint of a GIS? Denise, do we have a GIS technician that could kind of take that mapping data and give us another overlay as to what by parcel and who's responsible for this stuff?
Yeah, if we did the flyover, we'd be able to get that information. I don't know when the last, or what that would be, but yeah.
We'll reach out to 911 and get that data because they're the ones who have been doing it. And we're kind of bumping up against the trees. We have to do it when the deciduous trees are not blooming. So we can get some good penetration down into the area because they're pulling other data as well. Street data, gravel areas, drainages and stuff to that effect, which when the trees get canopied out, filled out, they no longer have the penetration. So they are not looking at just our needs. They're looking at other needs for other people doing mapping and doing other planning as well.
And we could look at our last report that we just got for the canopy report to see if there's something we could use from there.
Right. So we have that one, but we'll be looking at other ones where the dead trees are and some of the vegetation and such forth. Yes, but that's accurate.
Yeah,
So-
and I just know we haven't even discussed our reservoirs and our water sources and protecting our water sources, which is a whole other level of this, which doesn't have to do with any of the maps that we're looking at right now. So I just think that there is a lot to consider, but go ahead, John.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I understand there's a lot to consider. I get that all. I'm just trying to figure out how to get us moving on stuff we already have, okay? And get some teeth going with it. My next question is this, and I really appreciate the siren proposal of us getting good coverage for other portions of town in which, because previously before it was flood related, okay? And I think that's a really important thing. The next thing I guess I want to ask is, you know, I think the cities did a good job of keeping that area up on Higginbotham Flat in terms of that, we're still in a little bit of snow up there right now in terms of keeping that debris free and the whole 9 yards. And I know we've talked about it in the Higginbotham Flats plan that we've drawn master plans that show helicopter emergency, stuff like that. I just want to ask the question, if we had a fire next week and the state had to bring a helicopter in, how ready are we to receive that fire helicopter from the standpoint of that property up there as far as hydrant placement and other kind of paraphernalia? Or are we basically running around down here trying to find all the paraphernalia? So I'm just asking the question, do we need a temporary building up there with the kind of equipment that you guys want up there? Is the fire hydrant and the placement and the hoses, in other words, can that chopper land, and how long would it be before they're ready to be going out and dumping water? And is that,
We're 100% ready. There's no more that we need to do. We're not going to be filling them with a hydrant anyway. They're going to be dipping out of the reservoir, and the reservoir is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from that area. That landing pad that we proposed on Higginbotham Flats was more for medevac. So on the highway, we get somebody that we need to medevac out, or emergency evacuations for a mass casualty incident that's in the city limits of Manitou Springs. It's more for that versus the wildland fire world, because they're going to be dipping out of the reservoir, which is a lot safer and a lot better for them.
okay, so basically for a fire that happens in our community, like for instance, what we went through with that fire that was up there on Bar Trail and whatnot. If we had needed some kind of helicopter assistance for that up there, that would be water that would be coming down from the reservoir for that kind of thing?
Yeah, any large body of water that they can find, they'll dip into that to get the water instead of a hydrant. So you could look at Rampart Reservoir, our reservoir, Crystal Reservoir. They're super close, so it wouldn't take much time for the helicopter to hop over there, grab a tank, and then be back down here.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, so in terms of moving forward with this conversation, in terms of the assessment proposal, we've had some ideas. Are there any additional suggestions in terms of what we would like to see in the proposal? And then additionally, I feel like there was a request in terms of sort of understanding what we could do this year, what plans were this year for fire mitigation. And is that something that we can look at discussing? How would that work?
Yeah, so let me ask a couple of quick questions to make sure I have a clarification. I believe there's support to move forward with the sirens, so we will get that grant application and start that process. Then we'll bring the contract to you for final approval, but I just want to make sure we have support for that. The assessment aspect, do we have full support of that to move forward with getting an RFP out for an to do the assessment, exactly what we need to do, when, and all those steps? I'm not sure I have full support of
Great.
that, so I just want direction.
Okay, so let's go around really quick. Julie, are you comfortable with the assessment? John, yes? Okay, I'm in favor. Okay.
And one thing that we'll add to that, if everybody supports, is that public engagement, which
Mhm.
will cost a little bit more, but we'll add that to the RFP, is that public engagement so that we can do the education and get the feedback from the public on
And
that
then
also.
I think any codes or policy.
And codes and policies.
advice or
Great,
suggestions.
great. Thank you.
Okay.
And then the other thing I heard is, I know Counselor Wolf mentioned about doing some work on the creek walk, et cetera. But if you look at the map, that's not an area that's at high risk. So do you want us to really put that focus? It's on the map, it's the least highest risk of every place we have.
I'd rather it be a high-risk area. I
Okay.
just threw that out there. I would really, though, just to follow up on what John was saying is I'd like us to get started looking at city-owned property and what we can do with the areas that are higher risk. And even if the mapping that we have on the heat map is not as current as it could be, I still think it would be helpful, and I think the community would appreciate if we could tell them we're going to be spending the next, whatever it is, 90 days focusing on a particular area. I remember when I think it was Black Canyon, when OSAC came to us and said they wanted to do fire mitigation on Black Canyon. And council unanimously said and they were going to spend 150 grand of their money on that. And we said we would really like to get started on fire mitigation or more aggressively, but that's not a high risk, high heat, I guess would be the lingo area. So I'd like to know from the fire department, what would be a good area to start?
Do you want to mention the Black Canyon real quick about that?
Sure. So back to Black Canyon, the original bid was 151,000 for 35 acres. Of the 35 acres, only 15 acres of that can be mitigated because of steepness, slope, rock, etc. So I've reached back out to the contractor. It's right around 60,000 to do those 14 acres instead of the original 35. So that plan's still ready to go if we wanted to, but
Well, what if we would prefer to look at an area that's more hazardous to the community at large? What would that area be?
just off the top of my head, probably the parcels around Red Mountain. But looking at those, they will be very hard to mitigate and very expensive.
Is there some place that we can get started rather than waiting another 9 months? It's
I
going to
think
take
so.
a few months to get the RFP. And then we'll hire someone and then maybe they can't get started right away and they've got like a 2-month delay and that. So is there something we can do now that would make more sense than going into the,
And I think too, and I'll let you respond, but I think that it'd be great to give you all time to come back to us instead of answering on the fly.
Absolutely.
Go
I
ahead.
certainly will.
that's.
But just know that we have been doing that every year. I mean, we did Deer Valley Park last year. We're not stopping doing what we're doing and we're not stopping evaluating and trying to figure out where it is. And I understand that you guys want us to go out and do stuff immediately and we would love to.
What's next on your list?
Black Canyon was actually next on our list, but council didn't want to do that one with OSAC. That was the next one. So
So did you come up with something else? It sounds like the area that's most in need is also most difficult and maybe you don't want to start there?
I've spent most of my time looking at the Red Mountain parcel for next.
And does it make sense to get started?
Yeah, we
that?
can certainly start to write prescriptions and start to get bids and go from there.
Because we've got the money sitting there. That'd be great. Can you get back to us and let us know? I guess Denise would present the bids to us, or do you?
Well,
Yeah,
and again, and if you,
it will take time.
it'd be great to come back with a proposal, but you may decide Red Mountain isn't I mean, I don't want you to have to guess and then have us give you direction. Seems a little awkward. So, but I think it sounds like we would like a proposal for something.
I understand sooner than later. We'll get that to you.
Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Thank you. Sure, John.
I guess to me, I'd like to have a goal that basically there's not $1 left in this fund at the end of the year, that we have put every dollar to work in 2025 in this fund. Okay. I would like to have the challenge for this council to basically in the fall, that we basically be challenged to put another $1 million into this fund for 2027. That's just my thought. Thank you.
Okay. And when is the next chipper day? do we do that in the spring or is that, when is the?
We have them all set. If you give me a second, I can tell you, but you
I
got to
was
give me a
just-
second to look them up. I don't
I was just curious. That's-
readily
that's
available,
okay.
but we do have that
Okay.
set.
But is it, do we do spring? When do we do that?
And remember, we do the neighborhood chipper days. So
Mhm.
we'll be starting those April, I believe. And, but anyway, go ahead.
So the neighborhood chipping, I believe, does start in April where they go through the neighborhoods. We decided to do one chipper day this year and it's September 3rd, just because that neighborhood, actually October 3rd, take that back, October 3rd. Last year when we did do the 2 chipper days, the numbers were so low compared to past because of the neighborhood chipping.
Neighborhood.
So it's doing its
Mhm.
job.
Great.
So we wanted to do just one and see how that goes this year.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll get more for
Mhm.
one instead of kind of standing around for.
But in April,
3
there'll be an
hours.
opportunity for the community to start mitigating their properties.
Yes.
Great. Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, can I have a follow-up?
Sure.
So how long would it normally take to get bids out to solicit for bids to take a look at the Red Mountain area?
Potentially
I have no
Red Mountain
idea
area.
what kind of time frame this usually is.
The only estimate I have is Black Mountain or Black Canyon, sorry, but not Black Mountain. And I would say it took me longer. That was my first one. So it took me probably 3 to 5 months just because of my schedule, 4896. I'm only here 2 days. I can only meet these contractors on certain days. So it took longer, but now that I've gone through the process, I would say probably at least 3 months. Because I have to write a prescription and meet with contractors and then we walk the property and then they have to bid it and do all that.
So since we have all this money available to move forward on this ASAP because of all the pressure we've gotten from the community, would it make a difference if we were able to fund you more than 2 days so you can get these bids to us with sooner than 3 to 5 months?
So I think they can figure out how to help us move forward with this, whether it's employing him an extra day. I think they would figure out how to meet our request, correct? We don't need to figure out who needs to work an extra day. Is that?
Yeah, we'll figure that out to try to get it done as quickly as possible. And I do want to just, April through August, we have chipping days. And then we have theirs. So neighborhood chipping days starts in April and goes all the way through August.
I think that your request is clear.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yep,
I mean, you
to move
understand.
as quickly as possible.
Okay.
So, yeah, just let us know what you need us to do so that we can get rolling. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. All right. Okay, next up, we have our, and I should double check. Are we good? I think we're,
Can I just?
sure.
Okay, so let me say at we want to go forward with the siren. We want the assessment. We want public engagement and code and policy be a part of that. We want Red Mountain to be looking at ASAP. We also want GIS to be looking at the information that we have and see if we can get a more up-to-date map or if we need to do a flyover. And then we'll come and we have a direction from one council member to try to spend this all by the end of the year. I don't know if that's for all of council, but that's a statement that was made. So that's my recap. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly discuss whether or not it's a goal to spend all the money this year. I don't think it would not be a
I
goal.
will tell you that it's our goal.
Yeah,
How's that? We'll try. I don't
That
know.
makes
I
me
mean,
happy.
everything that we're gonna do, we're coming through city council anyway. We're not gonna spend a dollar without you guys, your approval anyway of that money. So that is our goal to spend it all. I can't guarantee that we will, but we will certainly give it our best shot.
Great, thank you.
thank you.
Good answer, Randy. I just want to give you.
We'll give it a shot. We don't normally do questions, but let's try this and see what happens. Okay.
So I'm Judy.
Yeah, Sierra, come here. Sorry.
So my name is Judy Karnick and I'm a resident of Manitou and I'm on the OSAC committee. And I've worked with Mike. I live at 1355 Indian Oaks. I just want to make this comment because I'm revved up and I hear what you're saying, but I want you all to think about the fact that in OSAC meetings, after I've had meetings with Mike, we have all actually talked about this. And I think you should take advantage of the energy you have, the energy we have on OSAC, to start something very quickly inside this community. I hate to use this phrase, but I think you ought to light a fire, because OSAC has a huge, and I do mean huge, list of city properties that OSAC, the city owns, that are vacant, and they're not buildable, or they're just not saleable, or they're too small, but they are fire starters because nobody's maintaining them. And we had come up with this idea of asking neighbors on those properties who have actually voiced their concerns about these vacant properties. They're mitigating all over, but these properties are standing there and they're just fire hazards. That's literally all they are. So we had come up with this idea, and actually Jeff Berry came up with it during a meeting here a year and a half ago, of asking these neighbors to come in or somehow meet with somebody or have a public meeting and say, come on in and let's help you see what you can do to mitigate this property, because people have expressed the desire to help. And yet here we are, we're in a dry season. It's a perhaps good time to let these people loose before it gets to be fire season worse. I mean, we're in a drought, but maybe this is the time. But if we're going to do it, we have to do it quickly. And I'd like to see, I mean, you're talking about a public meeting, which I think would be really awesome, because I think there's a lot of concern everywhere. There are people who really want to help, and that is just on their own. They've come through to OSAC and said, well, why aren't we allowed?
Thank you. I'm cutting you off because my
I have
arm's
a
tired. So
question.
that means
I
the
have a-
3 minutes.
I have a question for Judy.
Yeah.
Come back.
Okay, but I understand, I think we understand your request though. Is there an addition to the request?
I have a
You have a
question.
Okay.
So if I understand what you're saying is OSAC has already identified specific vacant, privately owned land.
It's
That-
no, no, it's
Publicly,
city-owned.
publicly.
It's city-owned land.
Yeah.
And you've already identified them.
We
and
have a
you've
whole
shared that
huge
list with
list.
the fire department.
I don't know if Mike has it. I just know that was one of our.
I would like
Look.
that fire department to have your list, because, and I would like the code enforcement to work with the fire department, because if our process that we have established through our ordinances is that we notify the property owner if there's a hazard, give them whatever reasonable is defined as amount of time.
I was just going to say, but we'd be ticketing ourselves because it's public property. So I think the trick is she's saying can
Okay, well, then we
private.
don't need code enforcement. We
Correct.
just need you to have the list and see if you're in agreement that these lots are dangerous, that might be a way to get started if the Red Mountain thing is going to take, 5 or 6 months just to even get bids in. If we could, I mean, it's very nice that neighbors are
We work with OSAC.
offering to do that, but
So yeah, actually, for about 2 years, we were going out and looking at every one of these parcels. It was not fun. But we wanted to actually see if we could actually find them. And some of them are treed, but all of them are overgrown. They're just, I have to say, all of them I saw were overgrown. But yeah, we have a whole list. And that was one of our mandates.
so can you get that list to us and to the fire department?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's,
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so again, working with our advisory boards, which is fantastic. Okay, so are we ready? We ready for Our next agenda item, proposed ordinance for adopting the 2021 International Fire Code and Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code. And who would you like to, who would like to introduce this item? We'll do it. Thank you.
We'd like to separate those two. Talk
Oh,
about the
sure.
Fire
So-
code first and talk about the Wildland Resilience Program.
Okay.
This is Brad Doris. He's our lieutenant that takes care of all of our building inspections, and he's gonna go.
Good evening. First thing I'd like to address, or I'd like to give you a little background, would have been either October or possibly November of 2024. Chief Tom Joyce from Cimarron Hills Fire and Chief Jonathan Bradley from Monument Fire got together and reached out to all the fire districts, municipalities, so forth around El Paso County with the intent of forming a fire marshal committee to try and get everybody on the same page as far as fire code was concerned. That took place probably January of 25 is when we initially stood the committee up. The goal of the committee was to adopt one fire code across all fire jurisdictions, municipalities, and so forth, to streamline the process of planning, permitting, inspections, so on and so forth. So in January, we undertook going through the 2021 fire code page by page and figuring out what was appropriate for each jurisdiction, what was not needed, those kind of things. That took the better part of the year to go through. It's an 800 and some odd page document that we went through. At the end of the process, we came together, came to the consensus with a standardized version of IFC 2021. The recommendation is that we move forward with accepting that. The big pieces of 2021, kind of a high level overview. They're much more in touch with emerging technology, energy storage systems, like lithium battery manufacturing, those kind of things. Fire sprinklers, a little more stringent, more appropriate water flows, more newer heads, those kind of things. I'm sure some of you have seen, they're doing the 3D printing. They're starting to 3D print houses now. Currently not in the county that we're aware of anyway, but so anyway, we went through the document page by page. We looked at all of the positives, the negatives, so on and so forth, and came up with a concise version of the code. That the goal is that all jurisdictions will accept that code hypothetically by April of this year. Colorado Springs has already adopted it. Fountain has adopted it. Monument has. Quite a few of the fire districts to the east have already adopted it. Crystal Park just had their reading on it, and I believe they vote on it this coming Saturday. They had asked for a special meeting. Green Mountain Falls and Cascade have also adopted it as of now. The benefits to all of us are more consistency, and big picture, we left things in that currently we don't have in Manitou. Like we left in lithium battery manufacturing. And the reason we left that in is because that's something that Fountain has. But we left it in across the board for all municipalities to accept, with the thought that a couple of years down the road, somebody comes to Manitou and says, hey, I want to do this. Twofold, the code is already in place. And secondly, I can reach out to my peers and go, hey, you guys had to adopt this. What problems did you run into? How did you do this? If I have questions, I have a great clearinghouse now and a great group of peers that I can reach out to. So where it benefits others is it benefits contractors. They know that if they're going to build a house in Manitou Springs, they're under the same code that they'd be if they're going to build a house in Colorado Springs. So it streamlines that process, makes it easier for regional building. Regional building, again, they know we're working on one code. So it streamlines the process. it makes it, again, it gives us a clearinghouse to bounce questions off one another, makes the process smoother. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that may arise. It'd be difficult to get into the weeds if you have a specific question about a specific part of the fire code. I can certainly look that up and get back to council on that. But big picture, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to address.
I have a quick question. Are you going to continue meeting now that you've
Yes.
completed this?
Yeah,
You're
we
still
we
meeting?
meet every month,
Mhm.
and actually today's the 10th, the 20th, we're hosting the meeting here
Oh, that's
at
awesome.
our fire department.
Excellent.
And typically we get 80 to 90% participation. Obviously, we all have different schedules being in the fire service, but it's a great group of individuals and an absolute wealth of knowledge. We're currently working on the 2015 code. That's the current fire code in Manitou. The fire code is typically updated every 3 years. We didn't adopt 2018 and I can't speak to that. You know why we didn't? Okay. There's not a requirement to adopt the latest edition, and typically it's updated every 3 years. So 2024 is out now. But across the board, it's generally we adopt the code prior, we adopt 2021. Now that's not to say there aren't agencies that will adopt 2024, but what happens is that 2024 kind of runs its course for a little while and we figure out all the problems, or somebody else figures out the problems. And then we come back and they're fixed. And then we're like, great, we can adopt that now. So that's kind of where we're at. But there's been a big jump between 2015 and 2021. Safer construction practices, like I touched on, energy storage systems, solar, lithium, those kind of things. So ultimately it's a safer code overall for both residential and commercial.
And if something does pop up unexpected, we can adjust the code
Absolutely.
as needed.
All
So,
jurisdictions have the ability to modify the code, and the only rule to that is it has to be at least as stringent, if not more. But that the authority having jurisdiction has full ability to modify code.
okay, thank you. Okay, any questions regarding this? It sounds like you've put in all the hard work up front. It seems like a no-brainer, but okay, sorry.
Affects new building, code for new building requirements.
Yes.
And would those new building, I remember, there was recently a show on PBS about California and how the insurance companies made a list of specific things they would like to see on new builds so that they would be willing to insure them, or willing to insure them for less than, a
Right.
crazy amount per month. Does this pertain to, do these conditions relate at all to
To a certain
that? Like,
degree.
do they require fireproof roofs, or are we just dealing with, the typical asphalt roof
So-
kind of thing?
So the next
Keith laughing?
the next topic we're going to address is the wildfire resiliency. And that will absolutely take those pieces into account. The International Fire Code is a best practice across the board for residential and commercial. They don't necessarily look at hardening of structures for a wildfire environment.
Oh,
They don't look at depending on the type of occupancy, they'll look at fire resistive and so forth, but it doesn't come into play as far as the wildland environment's concerned. That's where the resiliency code that we'll discuss next
Okay,
comes into
thank
play.
you.
Okay, so with that, can we kind of go around and a head nod? Are you good with moving forward? And this, again, we'll have a first reading and a second reading, so we'll have opportunity. John, you're good moving forward? Okay, all right. Okay, all right, excellent. And so then the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code, which sounds like a little more complicated maybe than what we just discussed, maybe.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the resiliency code was put into place by, I don't have to get in the weeds. House bill put into effect with the intent of adoption by April 1st and implementation by July 1st of this year of 2026. The resiliency code looks at hardening of structures. It looks at building materials, roofing materials, landscaping materials, parcel spacing, so on and so forth. It's not a retroactive code, and the trigger is 25%. And what I mean by that is if you decide to, this is a bad example, but if you decide to re-roof your house, most people aren't going to re-roof 25% of their house. If you re-roof your house, you have to bring that roof up to a Class A roof, fire resistive, based on which in the grand scheme of things makes sense, especially in a wildland urban interface like we have here. If you decide to remodel your home and you remodel more than 25%, whatever aspects of your home are beyond that or that you remodel, you'd be required to bring them up to the resiliency code standard, be it, again, siding, roofing, landscaping, so on and so forth. Some background on the resiliency code and some of the big things that are happening with it right now. Currently, there are 2 requests into Governor Polis to initiate a stay on the resiliency code. The thought is that that stay will not take place prior to the April 1st adoption date. Secondly, under Colorado revised statute, the state of Colorado, as it pertains to the wildfire resiliency code, is required to provide funding and manpower for implementation and enforcement. As it stands right now, this is an unfunded mandate. The state of Colorado has come out and said we have no money and no funding to support this. That being said, they have directed the Division of Fire Prevention and Control to, for lack of a better term, be the clearinghouse and look big picture at the municipalities as to whether they have accepted or not adopted the resiliency code. They haven't come out and directly said this. We have asked for, we being the Fire Marshal Committee, Teller County has asked for clarification. We're all waiting for that. But the general consensus is, should the city, I'll use Manitou as an example, should the city of Manitou decide to not adopt the resiliency code, and by the July implementation date or the April implementation date, and the city experiences a wildfire event, the opportunity for wildfire reimbursement will be greatly diminished, if not completely eliminated, just because we didn't adopt the code. Secondly, we will be largely ineligible for grants based on not accepting this. And thirdly, and the one that I find kind of scary is, should we have a wildfire event and someone decides to file a lawsuit against the city, they can look at the non-adoption of the resiliency code as negligence on the part of the city. So the recommendation of the Fire Marshal Committee is the benefits of not adopting it are far outweighed by the benefits of adopting it. We're in a much better position to adopt. And then if the stay is put in, it's no harm, no foul. We can shelve it, but we've already adopted it. So we're in a much better position to negotiate once that stay comes off.
Thank you. I really appreciate the extent of the knowledge and what you're telling us. Because just reading it, was
Yeah,
pretty dry.
if you have any trouble sleeping.
Yeah, read that. Two questions. One, if we did not adopt the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code, is that something that homeowners insurance companies is gonna look at?
Insurance companies are absolutely
They're-
going to look at this.
Okay. I thought so. I just wanted to
Yes.
clarify that. And then I'm just curious, city council last year approved the accessory dwelling unit
Mhm.
ordinance, and you mentioned additions. Does the resiliency code, if it's 25%, if it's an ADU, even if it's an exterior not attached
Mhm.
remodel, does that apply also?
It does.
Okay.
It does. And if it would be a new construction, then it would fall under some of the more stringent pieces like spacing, and that would be spacing from existing dwellings, spacing from property lines, so on and so forth.
And then my last question is, does this put a burden on the fire department to increase staffing, or are there things that we're going to have to look at with regards to the fire department budget in order to comply with this?
So ultimately, what it comes down to is from a fire inspection standpoint, right now, we don't do residential inspections. We do commercial inspections. Residential inspections fall to regional building, so forth. This will put the fire department directly in residential structure to verify the appropriate Class A roof, non-combustible siding, landscaping, so on and so forth. That being said, as I indicated, it is an unfunded mandate. The state has said we don't have the staffing, we don't have the money. El Paso County has followed suit and said, we don't have the money, we don't have the staffing. And across the board with the fire marshal folks, they've all said the same thing. We don't have the additional funds, we can't hire. So again, the best practice we feel is to adopt, basically because of the potential repercussions by not adopting. The expectation is that this initial rollout will be reevaluated in 2 years. And in that 2-year period, they'll have times open for comments, and there'll be discussions on what has worked, what hasn't worked. And at this point, we're going to say, well, nothing has really worked because we don't have the ability to enforce is the problem. But big picture, I think we're better off adopting.
I promise this is my last question.
You're fine.
So if we adopt, but we don't have the resources to enforce, and we're non-compliant in the enforcement, where does that place us?
And that's the big question right now. And no one has an answer to that. That is one question that we have addressed with the state and are waiting for an answer back. And we're in the same boat that every other jurisdiction in the state of Colorado, because this is a statewide mandate.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So
And
I will tell you that Teller County has sent a letter back to the governor, and they have clearly stated, we will adopt it. We will not enforce it
Okay.
until we have appropriate legislative response to our questions. We'll adopt it, but we won't do anything with it.
And then how much of this impacts planning? Won't this impact the planning department, or am I misunderstanding how this?
Yeah, it will impact planning just regarding especially permitting, et cetera, as they go forward. So that will be.
I
some
mean,
di-
they'll be the ones giving the information
Yep.
to the homeowner. Okay. And then regional as well.
And regional, right?
Okay.
And that kind of falls in with everybody being on the same sheet of music
Right.
with the same fire code. Everybody will be under the same Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code.
Okay.
Has Teller County gotten a response to
Yep.
their?
None of the jurisdictions have gotten a response.
Okay.
Sorry. Yep.
Thanks, Lieutenant.
Yes, sir.
Just to build on that, to give us a sense for in terms of the impact to staffing, the volume, when you think about in Manitou, new permits and so forth, is that a big number or is that manageable? Do you see that manageable with your?
As it stands right now, I feel like it's manageable, especially on the new construction piece. I believe Denise gave us a number of 2 to 3 tap fees a year. And looking at the big picture on remodeling and so forth, not seeing a lot. So as it stands right now, do I feel like it's manageable? Yes, I do. That could change at the drop of a hat. But as we currently stand, yes, I feel it's manageable.
All right. Yeah, so it sounds like we know where we're headed with this, I think, but is there, I'm assuming we would all like to bring this forward to the next, okay, regular meeting for a first reading. Okay. All right. Let's move on to receive and act on council correspondence. So do we have any council correspondence to share this evening? I know Carnival's this weekend. Go ahead, Judith.
I just want to thank the fire department. I am just so impressed with your level of knowledge, your expertise. You put your lives on the line for us, whether you're paid staff or the volunteers. And I was just so impressed with your presentation tonight. And I always love it when we've asked some really difficult questions tonight. And I felt like you really stepped up to the plate and answered our questions and heard us and want to move forward and work with us. So I just want to thank you for that.
Sorry.
A couple of things. I wanted just to report that now that I'm the liaison for the Historic Preservation Commission, which is new for me. So I met for an hour with the chair, whose last name I don't remember, Laura something. Do you all know her last name? No. I don't mean to be rude, but I failed to put that in my notes.
All right.
I have a whole page of notes
You know,
here.
Kristen knows. Headseth?
Hindsight, thank you. I met with Laura for about an hour and it was very productive and interesting. And the one thing I wanted to particularly share is that they have determined that the ordinance that directs them regarding material change of appearance and whether a building is, what's the word they used, contributing, is so vague that they have difficulty deliberating because there are no standards. And rather than them going out to other cities and taking the time to go out to other cities and seeing what their standards look like so that we could copycat them, they apparently just asked the head of the planning department, Fred, to ask Jeff Parker to one of these days maybe put it on his agenda to do that himself so that they can tighten up. But she's concerned because it applies also to requests to completely demo a building. And so if they feel that there's a historic building, if some of the people, and she gave me an example, but if some of the people on the commission feel that, the new owner or the old owner just wants to go ahead and demo the building, such as at the 2 houses on the Ute Pass motel that the Metro District now owns, and others, once the building is destroyed, it's gone. And she said there have been votes where it was close, but the majority rule was, well, we don't really have any standards and the property owner just wants to demo it, so we should just let him demo it. And so the bottom line is time is somewhat of the essence to try and get some better language for our ordinances. And it doesn't seem to me that it would be so terribly hugely time consuming or difficult to get some better sentences in there. So I would encourage us to, if there's a majority agreement on it, to direct Jeff, our city attorney, and his law firm to do that for us so that they have better standards, because do or die, you know, once the building is gone, and not, and so if the building should be demoed and destroyed, then fine, but they'd like to have some standards. My other issue is, for the first time, I drove by the Dillon parking lot when it was dark out a couple times this week, and I believe our sign is illegal. It has the flashing white lights on and off, on and off, on and off, all around the enormous sign. And I believe, and I checked with Alan Delwich, that in fact, this is a violation of our own code. And I'm told that the solution is to either turn the lights off or keep them on, but don't have them flashing like that. Because I really think we need to follow our own laws, for goodness sake. That's all I have.
Right, so just to move forward, Julie, you had a request that we have Jeff look into the issue, but I'd be comfortable asking Denise to look into the HPC issue and get back to us and determine if we need Jeff or someone else. Is everyone comfortable having Denise look into this and get back to us?
Yeah, I want to say that is part of the HPC goal this year, is to rewrite the entire chapter.
Oh, yeah, I guess you guys
That
are off
was-
the hook if you
So
don't
it's
want to
the
hang out.
entire chapter
Yeah,
of
goodbye, thank you.
17, and we've been in contact with
Thank
Jeff
you.
Parker on that.
Mhm.
So we are working on it because it's not just one or two things. They want to rewrite the entire chapter.
Mhm. Okay,
Oh, so that's a 12-month project.
I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll ask.
You'll look
and
into
let
it.
you know.
I don't
Yeah.
know if Fred would have time to contact a couple of other municipalities, but she just felt that that was more urgent than waiting for the whole code rewrite to happen and then go through planning and then come to council and then first reading and then second reading. And then by then, some of these buildings will be gone. So she asked if I could somehow expedite that one section of the code, and that's what I'm reporting on.
okay, thank you. All right, do you have any updates to share? No, go ahead, do the pool.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Denise and the whole team. I don't want to steal thunder on this one, so please expand on this, but the Pool and Fitness Center reopening was just such a major milestone. So huge kudos to the team, and it was wonderful to see the mayor up there in I think a swim vest. But it was a great day. So I wanted to share that.
So maybe some team building in the sauna, some council sauna time. All right, let's see. Judith, do you have anything?
No, but I did want to segue into what Counselor Wolf mentioned about the Dillon sign. Is that gonna, you got?
Yeah,
that on-
I'm sure,
okay.
right? I'm sorry.
I want to make sure that that was.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I assumed that was moving forward, but I appreciate the clarification. And then Denise, do you want to share the information about Officer Michaela? No, go ahead. You can do it. Okay, good. I figured you did. So I don't have anything to add, but Denise has something she'd like to share. So, okay.
So, great news. Today, our police department attended the MAD, which is Mothers Against Drunk Driving Award ceremony, and our officer Robertson was nominated. The winner came in down by just 1 point. She only lost by 1 point. There were 6 nominees, and she came in second. This is a big thing for our region. This award is for the region, and so it's quite an accomplishment. The other thing that was stated at this award ceremony is the DUI grant coordinator at the ceremony. He told our chief that we are doing an outstanding job in DUI enforcement, and can't believe that a department our size does so well in DUI enforcement, which means we're keeping the roads safe for everybody. So I just think that's a great award for our small community, and congratulations to Officer Robinson. Thank you.
Oh, yep, go ahead. Oh, the accelerator grant, yeah.
Yeah, the accelerator grant, we are still working. Thank you. We got that 1.5 million. We're still working on the total scope. So we're in a meeting again tomorrow to identify, to make sure that we have it really tight regarding the scope. And then we'll be starting that process and getting RFPs out and moving. That's about a 2-year project. So it's going to take some time, but we're really excited. Again, it's about creating a safe environment for pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles. There is a little bit of a match, but what we're doing is using staff time for the match. So we're able to use our staff time. There is, I think 35,000. I don't want to say exactly, so I better not strike the 35,000. There is also a financial match, and we're using the funding that we were going to use for the overall pedestrian plan or bike plan. We're going to use that funding to do this match because this is a much bigger project and a more comprehensive approach.
All right, is that everything? Okay, we're out of here. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. And we will see you at 6 o'clock on Tuesday next week. And Denise is sending all the emails. All right, have a good night, everyone. Thank you.